Start a new Pedic today. We're going to be learning Agadata today for the most part. This is a Pedic that's not particularly an easy Pedic, but the Gemara treats us to some Agadata before we get into the difficult chelik of the Pedic. One daf nun beis amid beis. Sagt the Mishnah, Keitzad ma'abrin esa arim. So what this Mishnah talks about is, you have a city, and you want to measure from outside the city 2,000 amas to know how far the tchum is. But the question is, how do you exactly measure the end of a city? You have a city that has houses, so if you have a wall around the city and the wall is exactly even, like a square wall around the city, so that's perfect. You know how to measure it, but that's not how most cities are built. You have a house that goes in, a house that goes out, and even the wall itself, as the Mishnah will say, can go in, can go out, and then there could be all kinds of protrusions from the city. So how do you measure this? And the Mishnah calls this ma'abrin es ha'arim, as we'll see soon in the Gemara. The Gemara will talk about this, but the simple pshat over here is ma'abrin, a woman that's expecting a baby. So there's an added part to the city similar to that. So how do you measure the city? Ma'abrin es ha'arim, you're always going to measure, as the Mishnah will say, you're always going to measure the 2,000 amas from that last house that sticks out. Even if you have one house that sticks out in one corner in one place, you're not going to measure from that last house on the entire side. So, bayis nichnas, bayis yaitza. There's one house that's in, that recedes, and one house that protrudes out. Pagum nichnas, pagum yaitza. Also with the wall that you have around the city, so it's built parts of the wall in and parts of the wall out. Or hayisham gedudiyais gevayais asarat tvachim. You have gedudiyais, which is leftovers from even a broken down house, but it has to be at least 10 tvachim high, that's also sticking out from the rest of the city. Or gisharim unefashes sheyesh ben beis dira. Different kinds of structures that are made, matzevis or other, like an oil that's made by a caver that's sticking out of the city. And there's someone that is living there inside of this. It's large enough for a person to be inside. So how do you measure this? Moitziin es hamida kenegdon. So you measure the city from kenegdon, from the last house or the last protrusion that there is from the city, and then v'oisen oisa kemin tavla merubas. And then from there you measure a tavla. Rashi is guided over here in the Mishnah. You make the 2,000 amas that you measure around the city. You measure a tavla merubas. This goes back to what we learned according to Rashi's pshat. This goes back to what we learned before, benegeh to the tchum Shabbos around the city. You don't make the tchum as a circle, 2,000 amas to every direction, but you make the tchum Shabbos around the circle, 2,000 amas in a square, which gives you the extra space in the corners, extra 800 amas to be able to go in the corners. Kedei sheyeh niskar es hazavi. So you gain extra space in going in the corners. That's Rashi's pshat in the Mishnah. But in the girsa that it says in our Mishnah here, it says v'oisen oisah kimin tavla merubas. Meaning it's not talking about the 2,000 amas that are square, but it's talking about the actual city itself. That you measure the last house or the last protrusion from the city, and then you square out the city, and then you gain also the place of the corners of the city. Even if the city itself is a circle, but you gain in the city itself as a square, that's how you measure it, and then you have extra space for your 2,000 amas. You probably have a picture for what we just learned here in the Mishnah. If you want to see the picture, it's going to be on picture, let's see a second, picture Nun. Well, you have a few pictures here. First you have picture Reish Pei Aleph, where you can see the protrusions of a house that sticks out. And then you have in picture Reish Pei Beis, so they show you how the walls of the city were built, where you have parts that are sticking in, parts that are sticking out from the wall, and so on. But you always measure from what's that protrusion that sticks out the most. That's from where you measure, and from there you measure 2,000 amas. And then if you take a look in the take a look over here, so they have the pshat over here of the next picture, Reish Pei Gimel, Reish Pei Dalet. They have the picture of the square. When you square it out, the 2,000 amas, so you gain the corners as well. Okay. Reish Pei Hey, that you square the squares around the city, not the square of the 2,000 amas, but the squares around the city, the two pshatim that I just mentioned. Okay, let's go back to the Gemara. Rav u'Shmuel. Sagt the Gemara, there was a machlokes between Rav and Shmuel how to read the word of the Mishnah. Chatani ma'abrin. One of them read the Mishnah ma'abrin with an ayin. The Chatani ma'avrin, and one of them read ma'avrin with an aleph. Mandatani ma'avrin, one that read it with an aleph. What's the word ma'avrin mean? Aver, that you add extra limbs to the city. Just like you have an extra limb of a body that protrudes, so too you have the limb of an extra house or whatever protrusion there is from the city to add to the share of the city. Mandatani ma'abrin ki isha ubra. It's like a woman that's pregnant, so too here there's an extra addition to the city. Now the Gemara is going to bring, similar to this, machlokes between Rav and Shmuel regarding other psukim as well. Ma'ara samach peila. The Torah says that the Ma'ara samach, it's a double cave. What does it mean, Ma'ara samach peila? Rav and Shmuel. Chad Omar. Shnei batim zeh lifnim mizeh. It's the cave was built like two houses, one behind the other. So it's the two caves. We enter, and then you enter further. There's another room further inside. Chad Omar. Another says bayis va'aliyah al gabov. That the double cave is that it's the two floors of a cave, a house, like a house on a second floor. If you say that it's a double cave, one on top of the other, that's the meaning of the word machpela, that it's double, like a house that has two floors. But if it's compared to two houses, two houses, one behind another, my machpela. What's the meaning machpela? The word machpela is not usually used when you have like two houses, an inside house and an outside house. You don't use the term machpela. That's usually used only when you have two floors. So what is the meaning here? That it's doubled with the people that are buried there, that you have the couples that are buried there, Adam and Chava and so on. That's the taich of Machpelah, according to this pshat. Mamre Kiryas Arba. The pasuk describes the place as Kiryas Arba. What does Kiryas Arba mean? Omer Rabbi Yitzchak, Kiryas ha'arba zugais. It's the place that has the four zugais that are buried there. Adam v'Chava, Avram v'Sara, Yitzchak v'Rivka, and Yaakov v'Leah. Another pasuk where Rav and Shmuel argued, Vayibim Amrafel. It wasn't the days of Amrafel. Who was this Amrafel? Rav u'Shmuel. Chadomar Nimrod Shmoi. His name was Nimrod. V'lama nikra Shmoi Amrafel. Why is he called Amrafel? Sha'amar v'hipil Avram avinu b'soich kivshaneish. He said, and he went and took Avram and threw him into a furnace of fire. So the Amrafel is a combination of these words to say this point, that he threw Avram in the fire. Chadomar, no, Amrafel Shmoi. Amrafel is his name. V'lama nikra Shmoi Nimrod, shehimrid es kol olam kuloi olav v'malchusai. He brought the whole world to rebel against the Eibishter. Another pasuk where they argued, Vayokem melech chodesh al Mitzrayim. There was a new king in Mitzrayim. Rav Shmuel, Chadomar chodesh mamish. One says there was taka a new king. The Chadomar shenischatshu gzeiros. It was the same king, but he changed his whole attitude towards Yidden and he made new decrees against them. Man dama chodesh mamish tichsiv chodesh. It says new, so it's a new king, so literally a new king. Man dama shenischatshu gzeiros, and the one that says that there were new decrees, midolei ksiv ayamas fayim loich. If you look in the context of the pasuk, it never says like it says in other places that he died and there was a new king. If you're going to say there was the same king, he just made new decrees, but it says he didn't know Yosef. He knew Yosef very well. So the Gemara explains, according to him, what does it mean that he didn't know Yosef? You saw these gzeiros that he made on Yidden. It would seem like he never knew Yosef and what Yosef accomplished in Mitzrayim, that when he made these kinds of gzeiros. There's an arichas de gesicha from the Rebbe and Chelik Tazayin. The first sikha there, where the Rebbe goes through some of these machlekes in here between Rav and Shmuel, and the Rebbe brings also from other places in Shas, many other places in Shas, and the Rebbe points out that there's a general machlekes between Rav and Shmuel, beneged to many psukim, whether you teach the word literally, you focus on the word and teach the word, or you have to look at the context of the pasuk and teach it that way, even if the word is not so literal. And one example, you clearly see this over here, is by Vayokem el Chodosh. So Rav is saying that Chodosh means literally, Chodosh, that it's a new king, that's the taich of the word. And Shmuel says, no, look at the context of the pasuk. It doesn't say Vayamas hayim loich, so therefore you say Shenischatshuk zeirosav. And the Rebbe explains other things over here and other places in Shas where you see this difference between Rav and Shmuel. Sagt the Gemara weiter, a simen. Shmoyne esre, shnei mosar, lamadnu, bedavid, vayivin. Amar Rab Yechanan, yud ches yomim gedalti, eitzer Rab Oishie beribi. 18 years, or 18 days that is. I was by Rab Oishie beribi. And all I learned from him was just one thing, to our Mishnah. How do you make the city for the tchum ma'avrin with an aleph? That's the only thing I learned by him. 18 days, but he only learned one thing. We'll see soon maybe what's the pshat here. I mean, is he saying this as a shvach or as a gnai? What does it mean he only learned one thing from him? Eini, is this true? Va'am Rabbi Yechanan Yud Beis Talmidim. Hoyle Rabbi Shebiribi. Rabbi Yechanan said this Rabbi Shebiribi had 12 Talmidim. V'yudches yamim godalti b'nein, and I was with them for 18 days. V'lamadeti leiv kol echad ve'echad, and I learned the heart of each one of them. Rashi says the sharpness of each one of them. I saw how sharp they are in learning. V'chachmas kol echad ve'echad, and I also learned the chachma of each one of them, how one is wiser than the other, and so on. So we see that he learned much more in those 18 days. He didn't just learn this one thing about the Mishnah that you say ma'avrin. He learned much more. So the Gemara answers, Leiv kol echad ve'echad, v'chachmas kol echad ve'echad, Gomar. Their wisdom, how sharp they are, that he learned. Gemara le Gomar. But Gemara, which is to be makabel nu halachis, when you're makabel, a Gemara is a Kabbalah. That he didn't learn anything though. It's one taich, one pshat. Ibai Seime, another pshat, Minayu didhu Gomar. From the students of Rabbi Shebiribi, he learned a lot. Minei didei loy Gomar. From Rabbi Shebiribi himself, he didn't learn anything besides the one thing, the Negei Tar Mishnah. Vibai Seime, another pshat is Dovar echad b'Mishnah Seinu Kama. What he was saying was, regarding the pshat in our Mishnah, he only learned one point, that the ger says ma'avrin with an aleph. But regarding other halachas in Bechlal, he learned a lot of other things. Rabbi Yechanan said, when we learned Torah by Rabbi Shebiribi, arba ba'ama. We sat 4 individuals squeezed together in one amma. They had such a chavivus and to learn the Torah. They were all pushing together to learn. And they squeezed them into one amma to learn Torah from him. Rabbi said a similar thing, even more than this. When we learned Torah by Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua, shisha ba'ama. We sat 6 squeezed into one amma to listen to Torah from him. The Marsha says that this was b'derech nes. It's not physically possible to squeeze into one amma to this extent. Rabbi Yechanan says, Rabbi Ishia biribi b'doiroi, he in his generation, kerab Meir b'doiroi, was as great as Rab Meir in his generation. Ma Rab Meir b'doiroi, just like Rab Meir in his generation, his colleagues could not understand, they couldn't come to the depth of his knowledge, of his understanding. In his generation, his colleagues couldn't understand his ideas. So this is maybe the pshat in the Gemara before when it says that Rabbi Yechanan couldn't learn from Rabbi Ishia. He only learned from him one thing because of how deep his understanding in Torah was. The heart of the earlier ones that learned Torah is as wide as the opening of the ulam, which was the opening of 20 amas wide. And the later ones, the later generations, is as wide as the heichel, which is only 10 amas wide. And we today, is like the opening of a small, tiny little needle that is threading a sitkis, a crack, an opening in a garment. Rabbi Akiva, so the Gemara says, who are the Rishainim, who are the Achrayim? Rishainim is Rabbi Akiva. Achrayim is Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua. It's one version. Ikidamri, others say, Rishainim is Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua, and Achrayim is Rabbi Ishia biribi. And Va'anu kimlei machat sitkis, and we're as small as a little needle. Omar Abaya says, Va'anan, and we that are generations later, in time of Damiroim, ki sichsa beguda, like a nail that you're knocking into a wall and the nail doesn't go in, so too for us it's so difficult to understand everything that we learn. L'gemara means to understand those things that we receive as a Kabbalah, the halachas that we receive. It's very hard for us to understand this.
So what should we say?
Manana basrei, yeah. Rava said, Va'anan, and we are ki etzbasa bekira. L'svara, like a person that wants to stick in his hands into wax, and his hands can't even go in, doesn't fit into the wax, it just gets sticky from the wax, but his hands don't go into the wax. To understand a svara, not even only for Kabbalah, but even to understand a svara, that's how little we're able to understand a svara. There's another pshat that Rabbeinu Hananel says, just like wax, sometimes when you have soft wax, and you push your hand into it, and you can sort of dent it. You can make it, but then you take away your hand. Eventually, it just goes back to its original form. So too, we learn, we understand things, and then a day later, it goes back to its original form. But gedenkt nicht. Ravashi says, "Anan ki etzbasa bebira l'shikcha." For us, just like as easy as it is for a person to stick his finger into a pit, the pit has a nice wide opening, and you can easily stick your finger inside. That's how easy it is for us to forget things. The people of Yehuda that were very particular with their language, to speak proper language. The Torah that they learned remained with them. They remembered the Torah they learned. The people of Gal that were not particular with their language, the Torah that they learned did not remain with them. The kind of language a person speaks, if he speaks properly, proper diktuk. We're talking about a person speaking with proper grammar, speaking properly. That's what brings the Torah to be remain with you. Why is it totally in that? So the Gemara says, no, you're right. Even a person that doesn't know how to speak with proper diktuk, with proper grammar, so on, that's not what we mean over here. There's something else. Elo, rather, Bnei Yehuda the daiku lishna. They are medayik in a lashon, right? When they get a certain lashon that they hear from their Rebbe, when something is taught to them in a certain way, they're very medayik in exactly how to repeat it. So, and they also establish simonim, similar to what we had right over here before this Gemara. The Gemara gives a siman to what follows. They made simonim for the things that they learned. The Torah they learned remained with them. Bnei Gala, the loy daiki lishna, they're not medayik in the lashon that the Torah was taught to them. V'loy misanchil hu simana, and they don't make simonim. So the Torah did not remain with them. The Gemara now brings another few things to distinguish between the Bnei Yehuda and Bnei Gala. You can learn from this to know how the Torah should stay with you. Bnei Yehuda gamru michad rabbe. The Bnei Yehuda would learn Torah. They would go to learn by one Rebbe, and they would stick with him. So therefore, neskayim terasim biyadam. Bnei Gal the gamri michad rabbe. They didn't learn Torah from one Rebbe. They learned from few different people. Neskayim terasim biyadam. The Torah did not remain with them. Ravina said another thing. Bnei Yehuda, the Galu Mesechte, the people from Yehuda, they taught others. They didn't just learn for themselves, but they also taught others. So therefore, Neskayim Terasim Biyadim, the Torah remained with them. Bnei Galu, the Loi Galu Mesechte, they did not teach Torah to others. Loi Neskayim Terasim Biyadim, the Torah did not remain with them. And the Gemara brings now that we see this difference between David HaMelech and Shaul HaMelech. David, Goli Mesechte. David, we find, taught Torah to others. Rashi brings there from the Gemara in the beginning of Brachas that he taught and he paskened halachas and taught others. Shaul, Loi Goli Mesechte. And Shaul did not teach Torah to others. David, the Goli Mesechte, David that taught others, Ksiv, the Pasuk says, Yireyecha, Yiruni, V'yismechu. The ones that fear you, the Eibishter, fear me and they're happy with me. Shaul, the loy golim misachta. Shaul that did not teach Torah to others. Ksiv Bey, regarding Shaul it says, El kol sheyifne, wherever he turns, Yarshia. Yarshia is a negative word. He destroys. I mean, the Amos is a simple pshat of Yarshia means in the positive that when he goes out to war, he's able to destroy the enemy. But over here, the Gemara is using it in the negative, that because he didn't teach Torah to others, so therefore it didn't remain with him. Rabbi Yechanan said, From how do we know that the Eibishter forgave Shaul HaMelech for the sin that he did? Rashi says it refers to the sin of the city of Noiv Ir HaKainim, that Shaul HaMelech killed a city of Kainim because they helped out David HaMelech. How do we know that the Eibishter forgave him? Shenemar, it says, Umachar ato banecha imi. Shmuel tells Shaul, tomorrow you and your children will be with me. That he'll pass away, but he says, Imi, you'll be with me. That means, Imi b'mechitzasi, that you're going to be with me in my mechitza. That means he's going to enter into the same place as Shmuel. So the Eibishter forgave him. Amar Rabbabe said, so now we see why the Gemara brings up this whole union of Bnei Yehuda. Bnei Yehuda were very medayik in the lashon that they received words of Torah. So now this brings us back to our Mishnah. If someone's going to ask the people from Yehuda, the Daiki Lishna, they are very medayik in the Mishnah, in their lashon that they learned. Ma'avrin tanan. Do we learn in our Mishnah ma'avrin with an aleph? Or ma'avrin tanan, or do we learn in our Mishnah ma'avrin with an ayin? Also, and there's another Mishnah in Masechta Bechayris, so you could ask them whether akuzu tanan, do you say over there akuzu with an aleph, or oy akuzu, or akuzu with an ayin tanan? Yadi, they'll know. If you'll ask them, they'll know. So what happened? Shalinu, people asked them, the people of Yehuda, and you got different answers. Va'amri loi, and they answered, Ikkedetani ma'avrin. Some say ma'avrin with an aleph, Ikkedetani ma'avrin. And others say ma'avrin with an ayin. Ikkedetani akuzu. Some say akuzu with an aleph, Ikkedetani akuzu. And some say akuzu with an ayin. Now the Gemara brings down b'chlal this whole thing that we said in the beginning, that the Bnei Yehuda are medayik b'lishna. What does this mean? Bnei Yehuda, the daiki lishna, Bnei Yehuda that are medayik in their lashon. What does it mean that they are medayik in their lashon? Okay, so the Gemara brings now a bunch of different things about this inyan of being medayik in the lashon, the way you speak. Dr. Gemara, Tahu bar Yehuda, the Amalahu, a person from Yehuda said, Talis yeshli limkar. I have a talis to sell. Amrulei, so they asked him, "My gavan talisach, what's the color of your garment that you're selling?" Amalahu, he answered, "Kitrodin alei adama." It's like the color of the leaves of the beets when they are still in the ground, when it starts to sprout. And then the color of the leaves are very green. There's a certain shade of green that the color is. So the point is, they were very particular in the way they spoke to specify exactly what the color is. This color of green of the beets, when it's that's we said they were medayik in their lashon. Bnei Gal deloy daik lishna mai. Where do you see the people of Galil were not particular in their language, the way they spoke? Dahu bar Glila dahava ka'azal va'amalahu. And this person of Galil, he was walking and he said to people, Amar laman, Amar laman. Who has Amar to sell? Who has Amar to sell? Now what is this Amar? Omrulei, so they said to him, Glila shaita. You person from Galil, you're a fool. You're not speaking clearly. What do you want to buy? Chamar? Are you saying chamar lemirkav? Do you want a donkey to ride on? Or chamar lemishte? Do you want wine to drink? Or maybe amar lemilbash? Do you want to have wool from an animal? The amar, the wool from an animal to make a garment out of it to wear? Or imar liz kasa? Or do you want to have a sheep to shecht? So he spoke unclearly. This is the Bnei Galil. Now the Gemara brings different examples of cases of people that spoke in a not clear way. The boy she wanted to say to her friend, Toy the oichlech chalbe, come, I'll give you to drink milk. But instead, she didn't speak clearly. What did she tell him? Omer Allah, she said to her, Shluchti. Some say it means a neighbor, some say it has no meaning. She wasn't speaking clearly. And she said, Toichlech lavi, a lioness should eat you. Instead of saying, I'll give you to drink milk, she cursed her, a lioness should eat you. There was a woman, the Asya lekamei de daina, that came in front of a dayan. Omer alei, she said to him, and over here the Gemara brings the statement how she said it unclearly. And Rashi spells out what she wanted to say and what she ended up saying. Mari kiri. So Rashi says the word kiri could be written with a kuf or with a chaf. When it's written with a kuf, it means master. When it's written with a chaf, it means my servant. So she meant to say my master. She was asking him a question. Instead she said my servant. Tafla, obviously. I had a tafla. Rashi said what she meant to say is I had a tavla. I had a board of wood. Instead she said tafla with a fei, which means I had a beam. V'ganvuch, she wanted to say it was stolen from her, and she said v'ganvuch min. And you were stolen from me. That's what she said. She wanted to say it was stolen from me, but instead she said that you were stolen, the dayan was stolen. She's not speaking clearly. And the kadu havis, the kad shadru lach ilavei. Now the way this is if they would hang you on this pole, leimati karach ha'ara. So it was tall enough that your feet would not reach to the ground. She meant to describe this beam, or this really, she meant to describe a board, and she wanted to say that if I would be on it, my feet would not reach to the ground. Instead, she said that this dayan was stolen. If he would be hung on it, his feet would not be reached to the ground. So Rashi says, Harei shtuyas harbe. That when a person doesn't speak clearly, so then you end up saying a lot of nonsense. Okay, there has to be some sister Teira here in this Gemara of why the Gemara brings this. So Pele Gomer. Okay. Weiter. Another case, the Gemara Amase, the Beirebi. Now the Gemara brings the opposite of how you can use your language in a way that there could be divrei chachma that can come out of it. Amase the Beirebi, the maid in the house of Rebbe, ki havas mishtoi beloshen chachma, when she'd want to speak in a wise language. Amra, she said as follows. So you had the students that came to learn by Rebbe and or to eat by Rebbe. So she said as follows: Alos nakvas bekad. The ladle that I'm using to get to draw the wine out of the barrel is already knocking. It's banging at the bottom of the barrel. In other words, there's not a lot of wine left over here. Yidun nishraya lekineyon. Let the eagles go back to their nests. In other words, telling the students that there's no more wine left, they can go back home. The kadav boy, the lisvon. If she wanted, they should continue sitting there. They should remain there. Hava amra luhu. She would say to them, Yadi basar chaverta mina. We're going to open up another barrel, chaverta, like another barrel for this. V'tiskafi alas bekad, and the ladle will float in this new barrel, ke'ilfe the ozla b'yama, like a boat that flows in the sea. Okay, so she spoke in this language, in this flowery language, whatever, in this wise language. Rabbi Yesi bar Azien kav mishtoi b'lashon chachma. Rabbi Yesi bar Azien, when spoke also in this kind of a language, in a more wise way, so he would say, Omar, he said, Asuli shar mishpat betur miskan. Prepare me shar mishpat. What's shar mishpat? So Rashi says, if you take the word shar mishpat and you translate it into Aramaic, what do you get for shar? You get a tur. That's the word in Aramaic. Mishpat, what's the word for that in Aramaic? Din. So shar mishpat together, tur din, tradin. If you read quickly, it's tradin, which is beats. But tur miskan, prepare it with me together with tur miskan. What's tur miskan? Tur in Lashon Kodesh is har, and miskan, which means poor, is dal. Person that's poor. Har dal, chardal. If you read it fast, it's chardal. So prepare me beets together with mustard. So this is the way he would ask for his meal to be prepared. The kadav shal be'oshpiza, and when he would ask people about Ushpiza, about the guests that they had from his city, he wanted to know about the guests, how they're doing and so on. Amar Achi, he said as follows: Givar pum dein chai. This person that's alive, mazu teve yesh. What good is with him? What's going on with him? So Rashi explains this expression of Gvar pum dein chai. If you look into Rashi, so Rashi says that this is all a translation from Lashon Kodesh, which comes from the word Ushpiza. Gvar is ish. Osh piza, ish puz, ish pizu chai. So if you take the word osh piza and if you divide it into 4 different words, so then you get gvar pum dein chai. This person that's alive, mazu teive yesh. What's going on with him? That's the chachma where he spoke with his language.
Like the Ushpizen.
Yeah, the Ushpizen, very good. Yeah, very good. Sagt the Gemara weiter, Abavo, ki avim mishtoi, b'lashon chachme. When he spoke with lashon chachme, he would say as follows: Omar hachi, esrigu lepechamen. Make the coals; they should be red hot or golden, like an esrig. Also, the Gemara brings an example of an esrig. Arkiul is a hoven. Spread out these golden coals and spread them out. Va'asuli shnei magidei ba'alota. And prepare for me 2 magide ba'alot, roosters that will tell me during the night. Tell me at night. They make noise to tell me the time at night. Ikedamri. Others said that what he said is v'yasuli bahen shnei magide ba'alot. Not that they should give him 2 roosters, but they should prepare. They should cook for him 2 roosters that are magide ba'alot because they make noise at night. Amre le Rabbanan le Rabavo. The Rabbanan said to Rabavo, Hatzfineinu, let us know the secret of Heichen Rabbi Loi Tzofon. Where is Rabbi Loi hiding? They didn't see Rabbi Loi that day. They wanted to know where he is. Amar lehen, so he told them, Olatz benara aharainis. He's excited with a girl which is from Arain, which is a Bas Koyin. He got married to a Bas Koyin. Achairanis, this was a second wife. Eironis, which was very lively. The Hanirasai, and she keeps him up awake at night. And therefore he went to sleep now. So Amri law, the pshat that I just said is the first pshat. The Gemara says Amri law Isha. Some say that this refers to a wife that he married. And Amri law Masechta. Others say that this refers to a Masechta that he learned. Rashi explains this refers to a Masechta in Kachim that he learned. That he was learning a Masechta in Kachim that talks about the Aveda of the Kayanim, Aharainis, the Aveda of the Kayanim in the Beis HaMikdash, and it was on another Masechta that he learned. Now another time it happened, Amri leila Rabbi Loi, they told Rabbi Loi, Hatzfineinu heichen Rabavo tzafon. Tell us where Rabavo is hiding. Amar lehen, he told them, Nisyayes b'machter, he seeked advice by the machter, by the leader, by the nasi. one that puts the crown on others. V'hingiv limipi baishas. And he was told, and he followed his advice, and he went to the south to Mipi Baishas. Rashi says Mipi Baishas was the name of a chacham, so he went to the chachamim over there in the south to learn Torah. Sagt der Gemara weiter, Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya, my entire life, nobody ever defeated me, chutz, besides the following three people. Isha, there was a woman, and Tinik or Tinaikis. So the Bach changes the girsa, Tinaikis and Tinik. Two children Azachar and Akeva, Tinik and Tinaikis that defeated me. What is the stories? The Gemara brings three stories. Isha Mahi, what's the case with a woman? Once I was at an achsanya, at a guest house. Achsanya achas. Asasali pulin, she prepared for me beans. So on the first day, I ate everything she prepared for me. I didn't leave anything over. Shnia, on the second day, the same thing. I didn't leave anything over. On the third day, she put a lot of salt into it. As soon as I tasted it, I pulled my hands away and I didn't eat it. So now she said to me, Rebbe, why aren't you eating? I answered her, I already ate before. So she said to me, if that was true, if your answer was true, then you shouldn't have eaten bread either. So it must be a different reason why you're not eating this. And then she said to me, Rebbe, Shema, is the reason maybe because on the first 2 days that I fed you, you didn't leave anything over in your plate. And then now she said to him, isn't this what the Chachamim say? And this is actually brought in Shulchan Aruch. You don't leave leftovers in a pot. But in your plate, you're supposed to leave leftovers. And Rashi Avir says that the purpose is that the shamish, the servant that's serving food, so the leftovers that he takes away, that's the food that he eats.
But today, no.
Today, I don't know if we do this. It's an Indian of Derech Eretz. Yeah, it's brought in Shulchan Aruch, and those halachas. No. Mitzad the fact that he eats the leftovers. That's what Rashi says there.
If you don't have a shamish, there's no.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So in other words, what she was telling him is the first 2 days you didn't leave over anything in your plate, so maybe now you're leaving over to make over for the first 2 days you didn't leave over. So she was minatseach Rabbi Yechanan. Then the case of a tinaikis. Tinaikis maihi pamachas yisimalach baderech. I was once on the way. And there was a pathway going through a field. I went in this pathway. So this Tinaikis, this girl told me, Rebbe, is this not a private field? How are you going here? I said to her, but isn't there a pathway that's paved to go through here? She said to me, listim kamaischa kavshua. People that are thieves like you made this pathway to walk through here. But you're not allowed to go through here. It's private property. So he had nothing to answer her. Tinak Mahi, what's the story with the child? I was once going on a way, and I saw a child sitting on a fork in the road. And I said to him, which way should I take to enter into the city? He answered me, if you'll take this path, it's going to be short and long. If you take the other path, it'll be long and short. So for halachti b'ktzara v'aruchas, I figured that I'll go to the one that he says is short and long. It's short in the beginning. It's short, so I'll go there. So I went in that way, and then kivishi gati li'ir. Once I arrived to the city, matzasi, I got to the city very quickly. But matzasi shemakifa naisa ganas pradesim. I saw that there's gardens and orchards that are blocking the entrance into the city. Chazarti la chayre, and as I went back, v'amarti lo, and I said to him, Bini, my child. You told me that it's short to enter into the city and I can't even go in. He answered me, but did I not tell you that it's ktsara ve'arucha? Meaning that you'll get there very quickly, but then you won't be able to enter. I kissed him on his forehead, and I said to him, Ashreichem Yisrael, fortunate are the Yidden, shekulam chachamim gedolim atem migdoilchem vatktanchem, that the Yidden are so wise, from the greatest amongst you even to a child amongst you. So this is the famous Gemara, which is the basis of the Lashon of the Alter Rebbe in the Sharblat of Tanya, where the Alter Rebbe writes that Sefer Tanya is to explain Kar v'lecha adav moed b'derech ktsara va'arucha ve'ezras Hashem yisbarach. So the pshat over there is, B'derech arucha uktzara be'ezus Hashem Yisbarach. Thank you. Which is arucha uktzara, meaning what's the pshat of arucha uktzara? Chassidus Chabad is to take a person's neshama, but to teach him how to work with it b'pnimius, with his chachme, bina, and das, and his aveda, seichel, and midis, and machshava dibur ma'aseh, and only then it's takana. It's a long aveda, but once you accomplish that, you're inside, you're in the city, you conquered the ear katana, the goof of the person. But then there's a derech ktsara v'arucha. Person has the seirus of his etzem neshama, of the avim mesoteres, but then that seirus doesn't really change the person b'pnimius. He could have a bigger seirus, but b'payil the mensch bleibt the selbe mensch, and therefore it's ktsara. That's ktsara of arucha. Yeah, that's Taich and Tanya. The what?
He says there's another reason.
Okay.
Even if you're only with shamish.
That's why you have to leave over on the plate. Okay. Rashi says you feed it. Okay, good. Very fine.